Yeah, that's how the whole mess kicked off. Not with words, not with a fight. Just that one slap. My cheek still burned. Not from the sting, but from the sheer humiliation of it. But let me roll things back about 7 minutes, before that bastard ended up eating the floor. It was a Saturday, one I'd been looking forward to. Lucas and Mason, my twins, were curled up on the couch in the living room, glued to their cartoons. Out back, I was setting up the grill, because this was supposed to be barbecue day. A family thing I'd been planning for weeks. Burgers, ribs, even that fancy corn salad Brianna always pretended to like just to make me happy. And then there was Brianna. She didn't look like she wanted to be there at all. Honestly, she carried herself like she was a guest in a stranger's home, not her own. Sat there scrolling her phone like her real life was happening somewhere else, with someone else. Didn't help that she had squeezed herself into that red dress. The one I hadn't seen since our anniversary 3 years back. Tight enough to make any man take a second look, and dangerous enough to start trouble. So I said something. Babe, maybe a little less nightclub? I half joked. She gave me a look like I was nothing more than a bug splattered across her windshield. Don't start, Jordan. I told you we were having company. Company? I asked, confused. That's when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there he was, this guy towering at 6'4", muscles crammed into a cheap knockoff designer shirt. Teeth so white they had to be fake. Tattoos crawling up his neck like ivy. He didn't shake my hand, didn't even acknowledge me. Just brushed right past like he owned the place. And Brianna? She lit up like he'd walked in carrying the sun. This is Xavier, she said, smiling like some lovesick teenager. He's a friend. A friend? Yeah, right. The kids had no clue who he was, and neither did I, but the guy didn't care. He kicked his shoes off, plopped down on my couch, feet on my coffee table, acting like he'd been living there for years. 15 minutes later, I was the one pouring drinks. Brianna was laughing, really laughing. In a way I hadn't heard from her in a long time. Not with me, anyway. Xavier leaned in close, whispered something in her ear, and she giggled, smacking his chest like a teenager on prom night. I could feel my grip tightening around the bottle. Then it happened. He stood up, looked me square in the eye in front of my boys, and said, word for word, "You're done, bro. I'm the man of the house now." I blinked. I'm sorry, what? He turned to Brianna, waiting for her to react. But she didn't move, didn't say a damn thing. She just stood there like a proud queen on her throne, watching her knight put me in my place. And then, wham! His palm cracked across my face, loud enough to echo. In front of my kids. My body froze, but inside, my blood was a furnace. I looked at Lucas and Mason, saw their faces twisted with confusion, with fear. My fist curled, my jaw locked. And Brianna, she smirked. A smug, conniving little smirk, like this was all part of her plan. I lost it. I lunged at him so hard the glass table under us shattered like ice. My fists didn't stop. I heard bones crunching beneath my knuckles. His bones, not mine. He screamed when I twisted his wrist until it snapped like dry firewood. Stop! Are you insane, Xavier? Brianna shrieked. The paramedics showed up fast, almost like she had 911 queued up and ready. They hauled him out, groaning, his face a bloody mess, his hand broken and useless. The cops came too, but my neighbors vouched for me. And Xavier? Well, I stood there in the wreckage of my living room, shirt torn, knuckles raw and bleeding, chest heaving like a wild animal. Brianna looked at me like I was the villain. You've ruined everything, she spat. I stared at her, really looked, and for the first time I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger, a liar, a traitor wrapped in red fabric. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers, but what came out instead was, "How long?" She blinked. What? How long has he been the man of this house? Her smugness flickered for the first time. The kids just stood there in silence, too young to understand but old enough to know something was broken. I didn't have the words for them yet, but I knew deep down, this wasn't just betrayal. This was war, and it was only getting started. The house felt dead once they dragged Xavier away. Too quiet. My boys shut themselves in their room, and I could hear Mason crying behind the door. I wanted to go in, to promise them everything would be all right, but even I didn't believe that anymore. Brianna sat on the arm of the couch, arms crossed, eyes colder than ice. No guilt, no shame, just irritation, like I had ruined her evening plans. I paced the living room, restless, like an animal trapped in a cage. My knuckles throbbed, swelling from the beating I'd given her so-called man. He had the audacity to call himself the new head of my household. My house, my kids. What's going on, Brianna? I finally asked, trying to keep my voice steady. How long's this been happening? She rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic, Jordan. You're acting like some victim. I am the victim. Oh, please. She stood, brushing at her dress as if dusted in lies. You've been boring for years. I needed more. That one word, more, cut deeper than Xavier's slap ever could. I walked over to the fireplace, picked up a framed photo from our honeymoon in Maui. Brianna beamed in that picture, and I looked like a man who had no idea his future was already rotting from the inside. So what? I asked, holding the frame. You just brought him here to humiliate me in front of the kids? She shrugged. He wanted to meet them. We were planning on going public soon. The frame almost slipped from my hand. You're serious? You were going to introduce him to the boys? As what, their new dad? She didn't answer, just stared at her nails like I wasn't worth her time. I should have seen it coming. The late-night yoga classes, the sudden interest in lingerie she never wore for me, the constant texting, the so-called business trips she always took alone. A few weeks ago, I even found a hotel receipt stuffed in her coat pocket. Downtown, 2 nights, king suite. She swore it was a spa weekend with her sister. I wanted to believe her, needed to, but the truth was, she'd been slipping away from me for months, and I refused to see it. Later that night, I dug through the hallway drawer where we kept all the useless junk. Behind the broken pens and expired coupons, I found her old phone, the one she claimed had died. I plugged it in, and in less than a minute, it lit up. What I saw turned my stomach. Pictures, videos, messages. I miss your hands, she wrote. Jordan's gone, come over. I can't stop thinking about last night. And the worst of them all, a video of her, in our bed whispering to Xavier. He has no idea. It's kind of exciting. This time, my hands shook not from anger but from heartbreak. She hadn't just cheated. She had enjoyed every second of betraying me. When I walked back into the living room, she looked at me with that same cold defiance. You saw it? She asked. I nodded. And I hope he pulls through, I said quietly. Because I want him to remember what I did to him. Her lips curled. You're pathetic. No, Brianna. I was loyal. I was faithful. I was a husband and a father. You're nothing but a story I'll one day have to explain to our boys. She didn't say a word, just grabbed her purse and walked out like it was any other night. I didn't chase her. I just stood there in the silence, realizing the woman I married had been gone for a long time. I'd been sharing a bed with a ghost. The next morning, she came strolling back in like nothing had happened. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring into a mug of black coffee I hadn't even tasted. The boys were still asleep, UPS Adrianers. The house felt hollow, drained of its soul. Then I heard the key turn. She walked in wearing sunglasses, not a shred of guilt in her step, dropped her purse on the counter and said, I hope you cleaned up the glass. It was everywhere. That was it. No apology, no concern, no acknowledgement. Just colder than a January wind. I stood up, slow and steady. You're unbelievable. My voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to cut. She pulled her sunglasses off, glaring at me like I was the problem. Don't start, Jordan. I'm tired. I stepped closer. Tired? You're tired? You brought another man into our house. Let him humiliate me in front of my own kids. And now you want to play the victim? She crossed her arms. You are the problem. You've been holding this family back with your job, your boring routines, your backyard barbecues. I needed more. More of what? More lies? More sneaking around? Getting tossed around in hotel rooms while I tuck our kids into bed? She flinched, just a little twitch. But I saw it. And for the first time through all this, she finally reacted. I kept pushing. I saw it all, Brianna, the messages, the videos. You didn't even bother trying to cover your tracks. She turned her head away. You were never supposed to see that. Well, I did. And now you're standing in my kitchen like I'm the one who owes you an apology for standing my ground. She shook her head, her expression softening in a way that almost looked like pity. Xavier made me feel alive. You just made me feel trapped. And what about Lucas and Mason? I snapped. Were you thinking about them when you were sneaking around hotel rooms? When you let that idiot walk into our house and tell them he was their new dad? They'll adjust, she said, her voice like ice water. Kids are resilient. They'll see what a real man looks like. That was it. Something inside me snapped right then. You call that a real man? A guy who slaps another man in front of children? A guy who's lying in a hospital bed right now because he couldn't keep his hands to himself? Her eyes flickered, but her mouth stayed shut. I stepped closer, close enough to smell her perfume. Sweet, expensive, but suddenly sickening. I made vows to you, Brianna. I gave you my best years, my name, my kids, my damn soul. And all you handed me back was betrayal. She scoffed. Spare me the sermon. No, you don't get to brush this off like it's some minor inconvenience. You blew this up. You destroyed us. Then she smiled. That smug, unapologetic grin that told me she didn't regret a damn thing. Like all of this was part of some grand plan. I'm moving out by the end of the week, she said casually, like she was talking about a grocery run. And I'll be filing for full custody. The boys deserve better than a violent man. I stepped back, stunned. You're actually going to try and take my sons from me? She turned her back and headed UPS Adrianers. Better start packing, Jordan, because you're not winning this. I stood there shaking, not with fear, but with a caucadrian of rage and heartbreak that I didn't even have a name for. This wasn't betrayal anymore. This was war. That night, sleep never came. I lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence that used to be filled with Brianna's soft breathing. Now it was just me and the crushing weight pressing down on my chest. It felt like someone had scooped out my insides and left me hollow, rotting from the inside out. I wasn't just angry. I was broken. Everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, trust had been reduced to ashes. The woman I once defended against the whole world had joined forces with a stranger to destroy the only thing that mattered. My family. My mind wouldn't stop replaying it. The slap, her smirk, those videos, her looking me in the eye and telling me I was the problem. Each memory tightened a steel band around my chest. Around 3 in the morning, I wandered into the kitchen and sat in the dark, pulled out my phone and opened the family album. Photo after photo. The boys at the beach. Brianna kissing me on my birthday. Her laughing in the kitchen with flour on her nose when we baked cookies. That woman in those pictures, she was a character, a mask. A con artist who had played the part until the Adrian finally dropped. I scrolled further back. There I was, holding Lucas for the first time in the hospital. My face was a mess of pride and terror, but I remember thinking, this is it. I'll protect him and his brother no matter what life throws at me. But how the hell do you protect your kids from their own mother? The next morning I made breakfast. Pancakes with chocolate chips, Mason's favorite. He barely touched them. Is mommy okay? Lucas asked softly, chewing like the food had turned to sand in his mouth. I forced a smile. She's okay, buddy. She just needs some time. He nodded, but his eyes betrayed him. Kids feel it even when we try to hide it. He'd heard enough, seen enough. That slap, that moment, it changed them too. Later that day, I called Marcus, my best friend since college, the guy who stood by me as best man at our wedding. I laid it all out for him, every ugly day Adrianal. He went quiet. She cheated on you in your own house? He finally said. Yeah. And that guy hit you in front of your kids? Yeah. Jesus, man. He sighed hard. That's evil. Are you okay? No. Not even close. Silence stretched between us until he spoke again. You loved her more than you loved yourself, Adrian. That's why it cuts so deep. You forgot you're allowed to draw the line. And damn if he wasn't right. For years, I'd excused her mood swings, her distance, the cold shoulders. I blamed stress, kids, work, anything but her. I kept telling myself if I just loved her harder, gave her more, she'd eventually come back to me. But you can't love someone out of betrayal. That night, I sat on the porch and watched the sun sink into the horizon. The air was sharp and cold, but I barely noticed. I wasn't just mourning a marriage. I was mourning the man I used to be. The man who believed in forever. The man who thought loyalty was enough. It wasn't. And as the last sliver of light disappeared, I knew this pain wouldn't kill me, but it would carve me into someone else entirely. 2 days later, Brianna was still in the house. Not because she wanted to patch things up, no, she was stalling, dragging it out like this was some game she controlled. She hardly spoke to the boys, barely looked at me. She just drifted around like a ghost in red lipstick. But I wasn't playing anymore. I sat down at the dining table with 2 cups of coffee. She walked in wearing one of her silk robes, the kind she used to wear when we stayed up late with movies, when we actually felt like a couple. Now it just looked like a costume, something to cover up the poison underneath. "Sit down," I said. She hesitated but sat, curiosity winning out. "Fine. But if this is another guilt trip, save it." I didn't blink. I slid a thick folder across the table. Divorce papers, custody arrangements, the whole deal. Her eyes widened. "What the hell is this?" "I'm done," I said flatly. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." She flipped through the pages, smirking like it was a joke. "You're really going to tear apart our family over a mistake?" "Mistake." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "Forgetting an anniversary is a mistake. What you did. You brought another man into my home. You let him put his hands on me in front of our sons. That wasn't a mistake, Brianna. That was betrayal." She leaned back, folding her arms. "You don't have the guts to take me to court. Try me." Her eyes narrowed, the playfulness gone. "I'll ruin you. I'll take the kids." "No," I said, steady and firm. "You won't. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I've got the doorbell cam footage, screenshots of your texts, witnesses, and most importantly, I'm the one who's been here, feeding them, bathing them, helping with homework. You're just the woman who comes home late smelling like another man's cologne." And for the first time I saw it, the crack in her armor. She hadn't expected this version of me. That version of me, the one staring her down at the table, had nothing left to lose. "You think you're strong now?" she snapped. "Wait until you're alone, Jordan. You'll come crawling back." I shook my head. My voice came out low, calm. "No, I'll be rebuilding." That very same day, I packed her things into boxes. She screamed, cried, even laughed at one point, calling me pathetic. But I kept moving. My hands were steady, my heart numb. Whatever love I once carried for her had burned away into ash. All that remained was duty to my boys, to myself, to whatever came next. The next morning, she was gone. Didn't even tell the kids goodbye. Just left a cold little text. "Tell them I'll call when I'm ready. Coward's way out." I sat Lucas and Mason down and gave them a softer version of the truth, one their young hearts could handle. "Mommy and I won't be living together anymore," I said gently. "But I love you, and I'm here, always." Lucas nodded, quiet and serious. Mason clung to me like the world was collapsing around him. Maybe, in his little eyes, it was. That night, I stood in their doorway watching them sleep. I knew the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. Custody hearings, courtrooms, birthdays split down the middle, endless questions I'd have to answer. But for the first time in weeks, a strange calm settled over me. The storm had ripped through, and now it was time to rebuild. The first week without her felt like learning how to breathe again. The house carried a hollow silence, like every room remembered her presence. Her perfume still clung to the Caradrians. Her shoes were gone, but the dents they left in the carpet stared back at me like shadows that wouldn't leave. Little by little, I started cleaning her out of our lives. Changed the locks, not out of spite, but for peace. The door she once swept through like royalty no longer opened for traitors. I painted the hallway, covering the wall she used to lean against while pretending to scroll Instagram and secretly texting him. I rearranged the bedroom, flipped the mattress, burned the sheets. Not one thread of that bed would carry her betrayal anymore. It wasn't anger fueling me at that point. It was cleansing. The boys started adjusting slowly but surely. Every day they asked about her less. Lucas stopped waiting by the window at dinner time. Mason didn't cry when she missed another scheduled call. And she did miss them 3 in a row. Always the same excuses. Bad signal, busy, I'll make it up to them. She never did. I found myself sitting across from a therapist a couple weeks later. Dr. Lawson, former Marine, quiet voice, sharp eyes. He didn't sugarcoat things or talk in riddles. He listened, then told me the truth whether I liked it or not. "She didn't betray you because you weren't enough," he said in our second session. "She betrayed you because something inside her is broken. People like that feed on chaos. You were just the meal she chose." That one hit hard. I spent months, years really blaming myself. Maybe if I'd been more romantic. Maybe if I made more money. Maybe if I noticed sooner. But the truth was simpler. Some people wreck good things just to prove they can. One evening, Marcus, my best friend since college, came by. He brought a six-pack, and we sat on the back porch watching the sunset. For the first 30 minutes, neither of us said much, just cracked beers and stared at the sky. Eventually, he asked, "She try to come back yet?" "Not yet," I said. He nodded. "She will. They always do, especially once they figure out the next guy isn't some fairy tale." He wasn't wrong. Word around town was that Xavier had skipped out after leaving the hospital. No charges pressed, no big scene. Just vanished. Too ashamed to face it. The slap that started this whole war ended with him crawling away like the coward he really was. And you know what? I realized I didn't even hate him anymore. He was just the symptom. She was the disease. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the weight was finally lifting off my chest. I was still standing, still breathing, still fighting for my boys. And in that moment, I realized something else. The worst day of my life, the slap, the humiliation, the betrayal, was also the day I got free. Because once someone shows you who they are, and you finally believe them, that's the first step toward healing. I wasn't healed yet, not even close. But I wasn't broken anymore either. I was rebuilding brick by brick. And this time, I'd make damn sure the foundation was built on something real, something that couldn't be faked. Then came Wednesday morning. I was knee-deep in the usual chaos. Lucas couldn't find his sneaker. Mason spilled orange juice across the counter. We were running late like always. It was noisy, messy, honest hours. And then the doorbell rang. I opened the door and there she was. Brianna, standing like she hadn't blown our lives apart just weeks ago. She wore a beige coat draped over her favorite blue dress, the same one she had on the night I proposed. Her hair curled, makeup flawless, every inch of her rehearsed to perfection. "Jordan," she said softly, eyes wet with what she wanted me to think was regret. "Can we talk?" From behind me, the boys peeked around the corner. Mason whispered, "Mommy." She flashed them that same sweet smile she'd used to cover 1,000 lies. "Hi, baby. I missed you." I kept the door half open. "What do you want, Brianna?" She gave me that look, the one she used whenever she was caught in the wrong and needed to flip the script. "Just a few minutes, please." I told the boys to get ready for school and stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. She folded her arms, dropped her voice. "I messed up. I know I did." I just stared. "It took me a while, but I thought I knew what I wanted," she went on, her voice cracking in just the right places. "I thought Xavier was different. He made me feel alive, and I confused that with love." I didn't say a word, just let her keep talking. "But he's gone, and I've had time to think. You're a good man, Jordan. A great father. I want to come back." There it was, the inevitable return. I almost laughed. "You think this is a movie?" My voice was quiet, sharp. "You cheat. You humiliate me in front of our kids. You nearly tear this family in half. And now, because your boy toy bailed, you just walk back like nothing happened? Like I'm supposed to roll credits and fade to black?" Her face stiffened, like she'd just put on a mask. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want a second chance, for the boys. At least for them." "For them?" I repeated, letting the words hang. "You abandoned them, skipped calls, blew off visits. Do you even realize what Mason asked me last week? He asked if you were dead, because in his little mind, that made more sense than a mom who simply vanishes." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't soften. I was done bending. "I'll fight for custody," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Then fight," I said flatly. "But don't think a nice dress and fake tears will get you anywhere. I've got everything, the texts, the videos, the hospital record. You lost the right to run this show the second you let him put his hands on me in front of our sons." She looked like I just slapped her. "I never stopped loving you," she breathed. That was it. The last straw. I stepped close enough that she had no choice but to meet my eyes. "You loved the idea of me, Brianna. The guy who paid the bills, played house, kept up appearances. But real love doesn't cheat. Real love doesn't bring another man into our home and call him dad while our kids are standing there watching. You didn't love me. You used me." She opened her mouth like she had something to say, but nothing came out, just empty air. I turned the handle, opened the door, and stepped aside. "You want to talk? Get a lawyer. Until then, stay the hell away from my kids." Then I shut the door, Hard. Locked it. Mason looked up at me, his little face full of questions. Is Mommy coming in? I knelt down, rested a hand on his small shoulder. No, buddy. Mommy's got some things she needs to figure out. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't lying. It's been 3 months since that day. The day I closed the door on Brianna for good. The court granted me primary custody. She didn't fight nearly as hard as she promised she would. Maybe she knew deep down that whatever power she once had over me was gone. Maybe she finally realized what everyone else already knew. Her grip only worked as long as I still cared. But I don't. Not anymore. Lucas sleeps through the night again. Mason laughs. Real belly laughs. Not the strained ones kids use when they're trying to cover confusion. We found a rhythm. School mornings, family dinners, Friday movie nights. The strange. Learning how to trust peace again after living in chaos for so long. Silence used to scare me. Now I'm learning to settle into it. One evening, I sat on the porch while the boys chased fireflies across the yard. Their giggles floated through the air like music. For the first time in forever, I wasn't bracing for something to go wrong. I was just there, present, steady. Marcus showed up later with a couple beers. Didn't even ask. Just dropped into the chair beside me like he always did. So, he said, twisting his cap off, you ever gonna date again? Or are you turning into the neighborhood monk? I laughed. Genuinely laughed. One crisis at a time, man. He nodded. Good. Don't rush it. You've been to hell. Enjoy the quiet. And I have been. But I've also been digging deep, replaying everything, trying to make sense of it. You don't walk through fire like that and come out the same. You either break apart or you break open. For too long, I blamed myself. Thought maybe I wasn't exciting enough, rich enough, romantic enough. Thought maybe love meant giving until there was nothing left of me. But that's not love. That's erasing yourself. The real lesson? Don't apologize for being loyal to the wrong person. Apologize to yourself for staying after the truth was already clear. Brianna wasn't just a mistake. She was a mirror. She forced me to face my blind spots. My lack of boundaries, my fear of confrontation, my belief that love meant saving someone at my own expense. Never again. If you're hearing this and you've been where I've been, lying awake wondering why you weren't enough, looking into the eyes of someone you'd bleed for, only to learn they'd sell you out for a thrill, listen closely. You are not the problem. You are not weak because you loved deeply. You are not broken. They are. And when they leave or when you finally find the strength to shut the door, don't chase closure. Build it. Piece by piece, day by day. Start with the small wins. Make your bed. Cook dinner. Take your kids to the park. Look yourself in the eye and remember, the version of you that survived betrayal is stronger than the version who believed love had to hurt. That's the truth I came to when Brianna walked out. That's the man I've become since she left. Not bitter, not broken, rebuilt. As for her, last I heard, Xavier never came back. She tried dating someone new, but it fizzled. Word is she's already burning bridges she hasn't even crossed yet. But that's not my story anymore. My story ends here. On a quiet porch under a calm sky, with 2 boys chasing fireflies and a man who finally remembered who he was before she tried to rewrite it.